Guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are doing well and staying safe. In today's video, we've got quite a banger in terms of value, because I'm actually going to be breaking down the exact top 3 reasons why your agency is still below that infamous 10K per month mark. So guys, I just want to break this down in today's video, but before I do so, all I ask in return for these, free videos I do on the YouTube channel is you just drop a like, comment, subscribe, and turn the notification bell so you get notified every time I drop an upload. It's been a little bit of a while. I think the last upload I had was like 10, 11, 12 days ago, whenever you're watching this. But long story short, guys, let's get straight into this. If you see me looking over here again, it's just because I got a few notes. So number one, right? The first reason, and again, I'm not just plucking this out of thin air. I've spoken to helped hundreds of people with agency transformation, which is my online program, help people go from 0 to 10K per month with their agencies. I've helped hundreds of people, probably like 90 something people in my actual one-to-one program or whatever it is, over the years before it was even a program. Not only that, but then obviously this YouTube channel. So I get a lot of DMs and whatnot, and a lot of calls obviously booked in from my YouTube channel and all that crazy stuff. So it's not like I'm just sat here just waffing shit and pulling shit out of thin air is what I'm trying to say. So the number one reason I hear, and this is literally the number one reason I hear at all times, is number one, you guys are not consistent with your outreach. I know that you've probably heard this so many times, but I can explain why. You see, when you've got no system for lead sourcing, prospecting, first line writing, right? It's going to be inconsistent. And the reason for that is because it takes way too much time. It's way too tedious. You're not enjoying it. Not only that, but you kind of have this expectation with SMA when you come into it that you're just going to basically start SMA, do a couple outreach, and then land a client. It really does not work like that. In fact, if you actually take a look at my statistics, it literally took me 1,600 different emails to different e-commerce businesses to land me my first ever e-com client via cold emails. So if you don't have that sort of patience, if you don't have that sort of system to be able to crank out enough outreach, you're probably not going to do that. Now, let me break this down even further. So what I've actually found, right, is that people aren't actually pulling out enough numbers. It's really weird because a lot of people in the SMA industry say it's not a numbers game or it is a numbers game. Me personally, I believe it's a numbers game plus personalization. If you can do both of those things combined, that's the key to SMA. So the key to me for SMA, and we actually first of all have to establish a fact, guys. The more outreach you do, the more clients you're going to get. And that is inevitable. I know it's mistakenly called the law of averages, but it still makes sense nonetheless, if you will. And that's actually, it's very true. Let me give you an example. The more shots you take in basketball, the more you're going to sink, right? The more girls you DM on Instagram, the more chances that you're going to get a DM back from a girl. The more dates you go on, the higher your chances of actually, finding that person that you like. The more places you go to and visit, and the more, people you talk to, the more chances are you're going to find somebody to network with or to become your friend. It's just the way the cookie crumbles. So the more outreach you do, the more clients you're going to get. That is true. That does not necessarily mean go and spam and go and scrape a whole a plethora of leads, like 10,000 leads, and then blast them with like a very crappy template. I don't recommend that whatsoever. That never works. What I'm trying to say is that you need to be able to do lots of meaningful outreach. That's quality, meaningful, and personalized outreach at scale. If you can combine these two together, that's when you're actually going to kill it. The only problem is that you're going to run into, and nobody ever talks about this on these YouTube channels and all these gurus and whatnot, is that before that, to do outreach, you need leads. You need qualified leads. And to get qualified leads, you need to be able to lead source. So this is a big thing that I actually focus on inside of agency transformation. That's a big thing that I focus on this channel. And one of the big things I see is probably the main problem that I see. People aren't booking enough calls. Now, if you think about booking calls, right? Well, what is it that you actually physically have to do in order to book a call? Well, first you have to do outreach. But how do you do outreach if you've got no leads? So it all stems back from lead sourcing, which is why in agency transformation, and like I just said, that's why I actually put a lot of emphasis on this particular area, if you will, because that stems everything else. It's like the tip of the iceberg, if you will, or the bottom of the iceberg. I don't know which way around it is, but you get the point I'm trying to make. It all starts with your ability to actually source leads. Then after you source leads, you have to qualify those leads. So, sourcing leads is just finding potential prospects, if you will, that you can reach out to. Then what you have to do is you have to qualify those particular leads, if you will. Then what you have to do is actually then go and send them a personalized, meaningful, quality piece of outreach so that you can actually have a quality conversation with them, which then leads to a quality sales call, which then leads to a quality client. This is exactly how SMA works. And the funny thing is most people don't have the patience for this. And it's not the fact that they don't really, it's more like, so they don't have the patience for it, right? And I understand why they don't have the patience for it. It's because it literally is the most boring, tedious, time consuming, long drawn out, I'd rather watch paint dry, ball ache kind of like bit of the business. I am not even joking. It quite literally is very, 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 very boring. In fact, it's so boring that I actually remember when back in the day that I literally wanted to quit SMA because it was taking me way too long to find quality leads at scale to even do enough outreach to hit the numbers that we're supposed to be hitting. So let me give you an example, right? If you have a 1% meeting book rate, which by the way is good, and you have a 1 in 10 close rate. So 1% meeting book rate basically means that out of every 100 emails you send, you get one meeting. That doesn't mean a closed client, by the way. That's one meeting. Now, if you have a 1 in 10 close rate, that means you need 10 calls to actually close one client, of course. That basically means if you extrapolate that, to get 10 calls, you actually have to send 1,000 different emails. Now, also there's stuff such as like a show up rate. Obviously, your show up rate is something, but we're gonna pretend to ignore that right now. We're just gonna ignore that right now, just for the sake of numbers and the ease of numbers. So you will see how accurate these numbers are and why it took me 1.6k emails to individual businesses to actually land my first client. And these are the numbers you actually have to stick to, by the way. I'm the only guy that will actually tell you this and show you that it's actually more of a numbers game than most people actually let it on to be. So let's say we've got a 1% meeting book rate. We have a 1 in 10 close rate. That basically means we need to send 1,000 emails to individual businesses, plus the follow-ups, by the way. The follow-ups, by the way, are going to be automated by Lemlist if you're doing cold outreach, that is. And once you actually do that, there's also show-up rate that you have to take into consideration. I mean, just because you book 10 calls doesn't mean that all 10 people are going to show up. There's going to be people that don't actually make the meeting, or they cancel the meeting, or they get cold feet, or they are just busy that particular day and you may have to reschedule. So, factor that in. What I'm trying to say here, guys, is that these are the numbers you're supposed to hit and you need to hit. Now, if you're sending, I don't know, 10 emails per day because your time's just that constraint. And by the way, I had somebody tell me that they're sending 15 emails a day, and it's taking them about 10 hours to actually do that work. I'm pretty sure you've heard me mention this, which is obviously not scalable, not sustainable, and that's nowhere near enough numbers to actually be scaling a successful agency and getting to that 10K per month mark. So let's say you're sending 10 emails a day, and that's the actual number that you're only able to hit because of time constraints. Well, then you know that it's going to take you 100 days to actually get you your first client. If it's going to take you 1,000 emails to get one client. Now, the problem is that most people think they can come into SMA and scale an agency to literally like 10K per month within like their first 1 or 2 months. I mean, it is possible, but the numbers you need to be cranking out to be able to do that is astronomical, if you will. Because think about it. It's just mathematics is what I'm trying to say. The maths behind this works like this. You do 1,000 outreach, you're probably going to get around 10-ish calls, maybe about 8, maybe 10. What I'm trying to say is that there's numbers that you actually have to work out. There's actual physical numbers you have to work out, and then actually you need to reverse engineer, stick to those numbers, and then actually work those numbers, if you will, and then optimize your life around working these numbers. Now, the problem with this is that it takes a lot more numbers than you actually think, is what I'm trying to say. This is the whole premise of this first point. Now, that being said, if you're sending 10 emails a day, you know it's going to take you 100 days to land you that first client, if it's going to take you 1,000 emails to get your first client. Because again, if you're doing 10 emails a day times that by 100, that's 1,000 right there. 10 lots of 100 is definitely 1,000, which if you actually do the maths, that's just over 3 months. So 3 months, 10 days, it actually is. So 90 days is 3 months, another 10 days on top of that is 100 days. So as you can see, most people can't even stick into SMA for more than 90 days anyway. So I don't expect them to actually be at that 10K per month mark. So what I need you to do is reframe your brain into understanding that there's way more of a numbers game at play here. You need to be able to crank out enough numbers. Kind of want to add a second point to this. And the reason why most people can't hit these sorts of numbers is because they don't have a consistent outreach system that works for them. They themselves are trying to do the lead sourcing, prospecting, first line writing all themselves. And you yourselves are making yourselves the bottleneck within your business. It's you that's actually slowing down your own process. I mean, if you're going out there and duplicate yourself by hiring like a first line writer, these are AKA appointment setters. I just call them first line writers because that's technically what they specifically do, just the first line in the actual email. So if you actually go out there and hire like appointment setters or first line writers and duplicate yourself, now you can go from doing 10 emails a day, right, by yourself, and that might take you maybe about 2-3 hours to actually do that, because again, there's lead sourcing, prospecting, first line writing in place. If you haven't got a set of leads, that is, if you haven't got a system for that, that's going to take you about 2 to 3 hours. What you need to do is duplicate yourself, and if you can duplicate yourself, you can actually just hire maybe 2 or 3 people, and now you've gone from sending 10 emails a day to 50 emails a day. So as you can see, it's going to take you 5x less amount of time to actually reach that said goal, if you will. So as you can see, these are the numbers you actually need to factor in, and that's point number 1. Most people don't have a proper way to grab leads at scale, quality leads at scale, and then actually prospect these leads in a quality fashion, which, by the way, I've created something called reverse prospecting, where we actually qualify the leads on the back end. If you're inside HR Mutation, you know exactly what I'm talking about with the latest module that's just dropped. And then the third point I'm trying to make is that when they do outreach, they're doing it all manually. So they're manually doing cold calls, manually doing outreach themselves, and it's very slow, very tedious. The numbers that you're trying to compete against with these bigger agencies that you see scaling, they're sending out 100, 200, 300, 500 emails per day. Literally, they have these systems, either that or they're running actual ads to actually generate clients themselves, or they've got an entire outreach team or outreach agency that they've basically hired, and they're booking appointments for them, if you will. That's very popular these days. So don't just be sat there thinking your agency's broken because you're sending 15 emails a day and nothing's really working for you. Nothing's really supposed to be working for you for a long time if you're only cranking out 10 to 20 emails a day. You need to be cranking at least 50 to 100. The more you do, the better, if you will, and the quicker you're going to be. If you're sending out 250 emails a day, then you know that every 4 days roughly you should be pulling in one client, if the numbers stay the same, and if you're doing the high levels of personalization and meaningful outreach. That's if the numbers stay the same, by the way. Sometimes the numbers change, numbers work very, very, very weirdly. But that's point number 1. Inconsistent systems that aren't really working and aren't really scalable. Doing it all yourself is not scalable. Point number 2 is your offer is extremely weak. So everybody tries to just literally grab Facebook ads and ram it down a niche's throat. There are so many different services. There's TikTok ads, there's Google ads, there's SEO, there's funnel building. There's even things outside of the box that you're not even thinking about, such as creating an online Facebook ad program and then selling that to e-commerce businesses. That right there is literally gone from done for you to done with you. There's even cold email services that you can actually offer to other agencies. For example, you can actually, my agency or another person's agency, you can actually create an agency where you hire people, like media buyers, basically. These would be your outsourcers, if you will, that basically do cold emails for other agencies. So I'm just trying to get you guys to think 3-dimensionally, if you will. There's so many different services that you can actually offer out there that people aren't actually picking up on. So you can actually go and create a whole program on email marketing, for example, and sell that to e-commerce businesses. Quite literally, it doesn't need to be a month-to-month service, although that kind of, it is good. Or you can even create a mastermind around this as well. You can create a hybrid program where it's a program, and then you've got live Q&A calls or whatever it is, and people pay a reoccurring fee to stay in your group, but you're helping e-com brands with email marketing, for example, and you've got a whole bunch of e-com brand owners in there, and you've got a Facebook group. You get the point. Hopefully you get the point I'm trying to make. What I'm trying to get you guys to do is think more 3-dimensionally and instead of 1-dimensionally, because most people in the SMA game just go like this. They either start drop shipping, then they realize drop shipping is not the one, then they come into SMA and then they listen to the same gurus. They hear that the gurus are offering Facebook ads, so they just pick Facebook ads and they go, oh, what niche are they in? Oh, they're in e-com and info products, so therefore I'm gonna copy the same thing, and they just try and offer Facebook ads to info products, info product businesses, online coaches, and e-com brands. It's just the same thing over and over and over again. What you need to do is listen to what the market needs. I have a saying, if you will. I always say this on my channel and to my students, that you want to give Susie what Susie wants for lunch. So don't guess what these people want. Just literally go out to your market, find a problem, find a niche that has a common problem, and ask them, what sort of problems do you actually have? What is it like to run a business, your business on a day-to-day thing? If I could fix one thing in your business, what would that be? If you could fix one thing in your business, what would that be as well? Ask questions like that for market research. Number 3 is an obvious one. This probably should have been number 1, is when you actually do get clients, eventually, you guys are not keeping your clients happy and they're leaving after month 1. So you actually need to have extremely good talent. This is something that most people kind of skip over as well in the SMA industry. It's obviously very, very, very important. You need to make sure that your service delivery is actually down pat. I personally would say, try to learn it yourself for a bit, but then outsource it straight away. And the reason why I say that is because the person you're outsourcing it to is just going to have so much more free time. You're busy. You're going to be so busy trying to build your agency, do all this outreach, manage your outreach team, or do outreach yourself, which I don't really recommend, by the way. Like I just mentioned in point one, I recommend obviously using a hybrid system where you use Upwork first, stack cash flow, then get a team member that you can actually pay for because you've got Upwork clients, you know, feeding you that cash flow. Then you go out there and you hire, you know, appointment sets, if you will. So keeping clients, I rather would put an expert in my business to actually do the service delivery and me focus on the actual growing of the business. The reason for that is because your attention is going to be divided into two different things. And I'm a big believer in kind of like where focus flows, energy goes, or whatever that saying is. So if you've split your energy into 10 different facets of your business, so you've got lead sourcing, prospecting, first line writing, replying to people. So yeah, let's say you've got 100 energy points per day, right? Energy is finite to us. That's why we sleep. We have to sleep. We get tired as humans. That's a fact. So what I'm trying to say is, whilst you're trying to spend 10 different points of energy in 10 different locations, if you will, all over the place, you're only going to move 10 different spots in 10 different ways. But if you focus all your energy, for example, on just your sales calls and, you know, just obtaining clients, if you will, then what you're going to do is you're going to go 100 points. You're going to spend all your 100 points in that direction and make 100 units worth of progress in that one direction. Whereas your actual, you know, media buyer is going to make 100 points. And if they're just focusing on your clients, for example, if you've got a couple clients, they're focusing all their energy on just getting the results, which allows you to actually get better results for your clients because it's a very specific job that they're doing. But guys, those are the three kind of like main things that I keep seeing over and over and over again. So number one is most people don't understand what the hybrid system is, or they're not using a similar system where they've got, you know, people actually doing this. They're not duplicating themselves for the outreach, and they're very inconsistent with their outreach. Number two is that the offer is weak. You're just trying to cram a weak, oversaturated offer down the exact same niche's throat. So you're just trying to grab Facebook ads and ram it down e-com businesses' throats. That's quite literally it. And you're not even trying to differentiate in any way, shape, or form, or come up with a guarantee. I've got a couple videos on this channel on how to actually come up with solid offers. And then the third reason is you can't keep clients and retain them. So once you get a client, you lose the client. So obviously you drop back down in income. And it's also like you're kind of like trying to spin too many plates, because you're trying to, when you do get a client, you're like, oh shit, I've actually got a client now. They've paid me. Now I need to do the service delivery, but then you actually stop doing outreach. So it kind of like you're spinning two plates, and one of the plates that you drop is either outreach, so you don't get any more clients, and then what happens then is you focus all your energy on spinning this client, and if it goes wrong, it kind of like falls off, so now you've got no place. You're back at ground zero. I've seen that so many times, guys, honestly. But guys, hope you've enjoyed this video. If you guys are interested in working with me kind of like one-to-one, I'll leave the kind of link below. That is a one-to-one mentorship program where you get to work with me one-to-one. It is obviously a serious investment, so don't book in if you obviously aren't in the right financial position to take your business at next level, if you will. Or if you just want to get into instrumentation and scale your agency, even if you're a complete beginner from like 0 to 10K per month, go and take a look at instrumentation. I implore you. I, as you can see, heavily focus on lead sourcing, prospecting, first line writing, outreach, especially lead sourcing. That's where it all stems from. You can't qualify leads if you haven't got leads. You can't then reach out to these quality leads if you haven't got leads. It all stems back from leads. Getting leads first. You need a good ability, a good system for getting leads at scale. That's where it all starts from. Think about it. Go and reach out to somebody right now. I bet you any money the first thing you do is, well, I need to find a business to reach out to first. There you go, lead sourcing. So long story short, guys, hope you've enjoyed this. I'll see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to drop a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon. Peace.